everybody, welcome back to the Claremont Classic Garage. Today we're going to be working on our 2003 Ram 3500. We're going to be installing the front axle shafts, which we're going to change the joints in. We're going to install the hub bearing assemblies and the backing plates and all that stuff, and get the brakes on it. Let's get started. First thing we have to do is change these axle joints. The axles that we took out of it, the original axles, had decent enough original joints in them. So we're just going to keep those for spare. And we're going to put new joints in these old axles that we got from the wreckers, because the joints in them are destroyed. This one turns this way, but it doesn't move that way. It's totally seized. First thing we notice is this one has a grease fitting in it. So you know someone's been in here before us. It's had one joint put in it. I've already done the other side, and it did not have a grease fitting. It was an original Mopar joint. The trick with these is getting the clips off. You can't even see them. They're in there. It's a little kind of a half moon clip that retains the bearing cup into the yoke. So we're going to use all methods at our disposal. We've got punches and chisels and stuff. The whole key is to get one out, man. Once you get one out, yeah, it's okay. You can go from there. Worst case scenario, you can get in there with a zip wheel. You can get in there with a zip wheel like that, right there on the edge. Where's the zip wheel? Here it is. You could go in there like that and grind right through the clip, and then you make it into two half clips, and it'll come out pretty easily once you do that. Well, let's see if we can pop it out the normal way first. I managed to get the clip on this side out. So what we can do is we can use our U-joint press to push the joint that way, which will expose this clip and make it easier to get it out. I'm sorry if I'm yelling. I've got headphones on. And like usual, our U-joint press doesn't have the capacity for these huge axle joints. So I've put a little piece of tube in there that'll take the cup. So what we're going to have to do is load this thing up and then give it a whack, and that'll bust it free. Bang, see? It just popped. So now you can see we've got it pushed out of its seat, and we can pick away at getting this rotted old clip out of here. There's not too much left of that clip. Come on, focus. There we go. The clip is almost rotted away to nothing. But that'll just make it easier to get it off. So we'll use the press and run it. That's it. The cup is out. Now let's see if this one will come off. No, that's the one that's stuck. But we have a trick to get these off when they're like this. So our problem is this cup is seized onto the cross. So what we do is, once we've pushed it out this far, we put our clip back on and then drive the yoke down, and that'll pull it off. We should be able to whack it on here. Yep, you can see it's coming out. There. Now the cup is stuck in there again. These things are crusty, man. I'll just grab that with a channel lock and twist it out. It'll come right out. So you can see the mess this was in. This side is totally dry. Unreal. Now we're going to go ahead and see if we can get one of the clips off so we can get this half of the joint out. I cleaned the yokes up and gave them a fast coat of gray paint. It won't last long, but at least it'll make it look like we've done something when we're done here. We can go ahead and put our U-joint in now, our axle joint. You can see this one has a grease fitting, and you can see the grease fitting kind of comes out on an angle like that. So what we want to do is we want to make sure that is inboard, that is facing away from the wheel. It'll make it a lot easier to grease it when we go to service the thing. So now we're going to put this thing in. I've gone ahead and cleaned out these bores where the cups go, and we'll just use a little bit of light oil to help these things slide in. So here's the first step. We'll get one cup in, and it'll go in pretty easily. We'll push that as far as we can, right through. Now, what we're going to do is put on one of our clips. Let me set up my tripod. That's what I have it for. So I'll get one clip on. There, just like that. Now what we can do is just kind of jiggle this thing out, but not all the way out, because we don't want the needle bearings to fall down. We want it out just enough to get that started, just like that. And now we can use our tool and push this cup in. And you'll see that snap ring on the other side seat. And then we'll be able to put the snap ring on this side. They go in pretty easy, see, when they're all clean. And there you can see it's left us just enough room to get our snap ring in. Just like that. Now what I'll do is I'll get a little punch and a little hammer and just make sure those snap rings are set in and that our joint articulates. It'll loosen up. We'll loosen it up when we're done. That's the last step. Now, next step is putting it together in here, and that's just a repeat of the same procedure. I'll see you when we're done. Now I'll finish it up. There we are. The snap ring on that side is set. So I'll just remove this, and we can install our snap ring on this side. Go watch, these damn things will fly. Whoop. There we go. Whoop, no, I missed. There we go. It's in now. There. So I make sure that one's set. We make sure that one's set. And then we're going to make sure that that thing works nicely. And you can give it a whack on all four sides. And now she's free as a bird. Beautiful. Last step is to install our grease zerk. It just screws right in there, and we tighten it up with a 5/16 socket. Now we're going to turn our attention to this end. We're going to use a wire brush and make sure the splines are clean. And then we'll get a Scotch-Brite pad and make sure the sealing surfaces are clean. This here, this thing has got a really, really wide seal because it's got to keep a lot of junk out as well as keeping the oil in. And you can see that surface is in excellent condition. Now we can put the axle in. I've already gone ahead and put a bunch of anti-seize in the bore where our hub bearing assembly is going to go and on the face of it. Now we can get our axle. I got a rag I stuck in here. We can get our axle and slide it in. I've put some oil on the spline and the seal surface. These things are long and heavy. It's not easy to get them to go in there, but there we go, it's in. Then you just work it into the, and then once you get to where it's contacting the seal, the seals are tight on this. You actually have to tap it in. And there you go, she's in. Now we can go ahead and get ready to put in the hub. Now I can go ahead and put this thing together. Wow, I've been waiting for this. So first thing that goes on is our dust shield. And it's got a few interesting features. It's got a little dimple in it here to work its way around the tie rod end. And also this here is what's going to help protect the wire of our wheel speed sensor. I cleaned the bolts and put some anti-seize on them. Now our hub can go in. First we get it over the spline. There we go. Come on. There she is. And then we'll get it turned to the right position. Make sure that this little, there we go, that little finger on the back, the backing plate has to go over the sensor, just like that. And now we can get one of these bolts started. There we are. And we'll just pull her in with the bolts. There we go. There, now I know it's not going to fall on the ground. We fish this through the hole here. And that's going to go underneath there, so that it's totally protected, unlike the way it was before. And then this little grommet on it, there, goes into that bracket, and that holds it securely. Book says these ones torque to 149. So we're going to do them crisscross. Whoops. There's one. And we'll get the two on this side. That's tight, man. 149 is pretty substantial. And these old bolts, the heads of them are not, there we go. The heads of them are not exactly the same shape they used to be. Well, that's okay. There we are. Double check them. There we go. Now, we can tighten the hub nut. So first on goes the washer. We'll just put a little anti-seize on both sides of it. That helps the nut to torque down into it. Make sure our nut looks okay. And then we torque this in 2 stages. And we haven't got any brakes on it right now, so I'll show you how we do that. So in order to torque this, the first thing we're going to do is I just stick this piece of brass in there under the yoke, and that keeps it from turning. The first step is to torque this to 132. So we'll go ahead and do that. There. Once it's at 132, they want us to turn it around and around and around. So we'll do that. We'll give it a few turns. They say that's going to help make sure the bearing is totally seated in there. Wow, this works really nice. That U-joint that we changed is working fantastic. Okay, now we're going to put it back in. And we got to crank our torque wrench up to 263. And torque it to 263. It's actually 3 steps. The third step is advancing it to the next slot so we can put the cotter pin in. Okay, so this thing only goes up on 250 on the dial, but that's okay. We can go past. It'll work. 263. There we go. Now, our piece of brass is in there, and we'll torque this thing to 263. There we are. Unwind our torque wrench, and then we'll go grab the big 3/4 drive bar. Never ever back this up to get to the slot for the cotter pin. Always advance it. Where's that big bar? Where's that big bar? Here it is. So, the tang of the nut is just about on top of the hole, so we got to advance it a little bit. Just about there. Oh, so close. Yeah, that's it right there. Perfect. Now we can put our cotter pin in. This takes a pretty big cotter pin. Not the little 1/8 ones that typically we would put in using a tie rod end, you know. And there we have it. That's the bearing done. Get that out of there. Perfect. That's working just like it should. See, you can turn it all the way either way. And our U-joint works nicely. Good. Now we can put the brake rotor on. I've gone and put some anti-seize around the register and a little bit on these studs because we need to install the dually adapter once the rotor is on. So it just goes on there like that. Beautiful. And then the dually adapter goes on top of it. And then this goes on like that. I put some anti-seize in the counter bore of it that fits over the register. And then we've got all new nuts. These are 9/16 fine grade 8 nuts. And they hold this on. And I'll show you in a second how we're going to torque them. So now we need to torque these nuts. First thing we got to do is keep it from turning. So we're going to do what we did before and stick that in our yoke. Now, obviously, you can't get at these with a socket. So what you need to do is you need to use an extension on the torque wrench. Now, there's a formula for that. I could explain it to you, but it's just as easy to go look it up on the internet like I did. And I actually found an interactive tool where you just you punch in what you want the final torque to be, and it tells you what to set the wrench to according to the length of your extension. And in our case, it was about 94 foot-pounds we need to set this torque wrench to get us at around 150 foot-pounds. The factory, the service manual does not give a spec for these nuts because they are basically common hardware. So that refers you to the front section of the book. And the factory nuts that were on here were grade 5, 9/16 fine. So you would torque them to 110. These ones that we bought are grade 8. So we could go up to 150 with these babies. And to reach that, like I said, we need to set the torque wrench to about 94, I believe. Yeah, 94. So what we're going to do is we're going to set the torque wrench to 94. We're using a 13/16 socket and an old long acorn lug nut. We've got a wrench here, 7/8 that fits on there. I should have gone and at least wrench tighten these first. And we're going to use our torque wrench. Let me move this back a little bit so you can see what I'm doing. We're going to use the torque wrench in there like that. Now, you just have to make sure that you keep it in a straight line like I'm doing here. Because if it starts getting not straight, that affects your calculation. It's kind of a slow process, but it gets the job done. There we are. And now we'll just work our way all the way around it, and I'll see you when I'm done. Well, that all went pretty well. And now we're ready for our next step, which will be overhauling the calipers, getting all the brakes and everything all put back together and on and ready to go. Get these things hooked up. That'll be in an upcoming video. Well, that was pretty good, I'd say. We got a lot done today. That blob of rust that was those axle joints, I didn't know how that was going to go. But it all worked out okay. It's just, unlike little cars, it's a big, heavy truck, and all the hardware is heavy. The torque wrench it's a lot of pulling on that torque wrench to get these things tight. But hey, that's why we got a long torque wrench. Anyway, I want to thank you for tuning in. Hope you'll come back and see us again. And until then, this is Kevin saying so long from the Claremont Classic Garage.